Okay, so this week we are learning the teachings of Tzadok and Parshat Vayeshev, and Vayeshev is a very interesting parsha. It has a bunch of different stories, and it starts with the huge story of the selling of Yosef, and then it continues with this very interesting story of Yehuda and Tamar, and then it has a story with Yosef being in Egypt, and he is seduced by the wife of Potiphar. Okay? So the Reb Tzadok notices that what is the common denominator, what is the thread that goes from the beginning to the end of the parsha, that the common theme is the theme of Yisod, okay, which means sexual holiness, sexual morality, and lack thereof. And it starts really because how did the whole story of the brothers hating Yosef start? It says that he was bringing dibatam ra'ah. It says that he was speaking lashon hara, and what was the lashon hara? So Rashi says three things that he was speaking lashon hara about. That first of all, that he says that he was claiming that they were eating every menachai. Second of all, that they weren't treating the brothers of Bilhan Zoppa, the sons of Bilhan Zoppa, he weren't treating them with respect. And third of all, that they were chashudim al harayos, that they were sexually immoral. Okay, that was the thing that he saw in them, and so Tzadok says that it was a result of the fact that he saw in them that they weren't being sexually immoral, that they got so upset and they decided to sell them into slavery, and then the whole thing with Yehuda and Tamar. So that the story that involves two things. The first of all, the story of Yehuda and Tamar is that Yehuda had a son named and he brought a wife. He found a wife for her, and her name was Tamar, and so the Gemara says that he sinned with his wife, and it's not clear in the Pesukim. By Onan, it says very clearly what the sin was, and that was the sin of masturbation, and the Chazal understand that was the same problem with as well. And they explained that they were obsessed with Tamar's beauty that they didn't want her to become pregnant, because when they were scared that when she would be pregnant, then she wouldn't be as beautiful, and that's why they didn't want her to become pregnant. And to avoid her becoming pregnant, so that's why they masturbated, and so it started with that sin, which is another problem of kedusha of Yisod, and then it continues with that after this happened twice. So it says that Hashem killed Hashem killed Onan, and then he had a third son, Shelah, and he wanted Shelah to marry her as well, and so she wanted Shelah to be married to him, and Yehuda was scared that the same thing would happen to Shelah. So she devised a scheme. That she's going to get married into the family, whether they like it or not. And that is that she dressed up like a prostitute. And so she, as a prostitute, seduced Yehuda and succeeded in seducing Yehuda. And through that, so she became pregnant, and then he almost sentenced her to death, and then he admitted that they made a mistake. And anyway, so we in the whole story of Yehuda and Tamar, the whole story is around, first of all, masturbation, and second of all, prostitution, and which is obviously around this topic of sexual morality, and then the last story, which is the most obvious and the most like not in the commentaries, it's in the text itself, is with the wife of Potiphar, that when Yosef was already in Egypt, then he was being seduced by the wife of Potiphar, and even though she was a married woman, and she wanted to sleep with him, and there it says that he was very strong, and Vayima'en, that he refused to succumb to his evil inclination, and it's because of this story that he got the title Yosef HaTzadik. Okay, why is it called Yosef HaTzadik? Because there's a special connection with Tzadik to this whole theme of sexual morality, because of the pasuk it says Tzadik Yisod Olam. Tzadik Yisod Olam, and that's why Yisod. So this is a reference to this midah, so this element of life called sexual morality. So this is This is the common thread of the parsha, and this is the theme, he says. And he notes that Vayeshev is the 9th parsha since the beginning of the Torah. And 9, if you count the Sfirot from the top, from Keter, so then the 9th is going to be the second to last, which is Yisod, which is precisely this. Because that's why it makes sense that the 9th parsha, Parshas Vayeshev, is going to be the parsha that's dealing with sexual morality, with Tikkun Yisod, and he explains that this is really what the first Rashi in the parsha really means. That it says Vayeshev Yaakov, Vayeshev Yaakov. What does it mean, Vayeshev Yaakov? So Rashi says that Bikesh Yaakov Lishev B'Shalva. That Yaakov, he just wanted a calm life, Kafatz alav Regzah Shel Yosef, and as a response, as a reaction to the fact that he wanted to have a calm life, so the whole stress of the story of Yosef jumped upon him. Okay, and that's the next thing he knew. So he lost his son. Yosef was gone, and this whole episode started. So Tzadok explains, what does it really mean that because Yaakov Leshem V'Shalva, that he had thought that he had reached a certain level of growth, that he was ready to plateau, that he had reached the level of righteousness that he was expected to reach over the course of his life, and then Hashem decided that no, you have still something to grow, and that is in Regzah Shel Yosef, in the element of Yosef. That Yosef, he represents this element of spiritual growth, which is about sexual morality. So we call this whole element of life, we call this Tikkun HaBrit. We call this the rectification of the Brit, and it's very interesting. Like we call this the fact that we call it Brit, like it's a covenant. That it's a big thing. It's a big thing. Like it's a main part of our covenant with Hashem is in our sexuality. Okay, like obviously, like in a certain extent, it's like intermarriage is a huge element of this, and it's and a lot of the time, like the main thing, the main struggles, a person who's struggling with, should I marry outside of Judaism? So this is their struggle, that I found somebody that I like hanging out with, and it is like it's all around the sexual desires versus my moral compass, but it's really much bigger than that, and the when we say that a tzaddik is a person, and we say that we call this a tzaddik, that we call it, it's the brit, that there's a covenant about this, that part of our covenant with Hashem is about this. So it tells us that it's something very, very inherent. It's very basic, very very fundamental, and in being a Jew, which is surprising. Like what's the big deal? Like especially with a lot of the details. Like it would seem that it's just like another mitzvah, and like why is it that it's such a defining factor, that this is what it means to be a tzaddik, that it's all about how you are with your sexuality. And so there's an interesting thing with Rabbi Nachman. So Rabbi Nachman, when he talks about the Yetzer Hara for sexual desire, so he calls it the Ra HaKolel. It is the all-encompassing evil. Shekol Haraot Klulim Bo, that all the different evils are included somehow in sexual Yetzer Hara. Hainu Tav'eret HaMedura Shel Tavas HaNiyuf, that it's in the bonfire, in the great fire of the lust for adultery, so that in it is included all of the evils in the world. Okay? He looked at this as the Taiva HaKlali, the thing that includes everything else, and that's why he wrote the Tikkun HaKlali. He called the Tikkun HaKlali, which is all about fixing this element of our existence. So he called this the general rectification. Okay? He saw this as something very big, very all-inclusive, and this is what Tikkun HaBris is all about. So what is this? So what is really when we're talking about Tikkun HaBrit, when we're talking about a proper way for sexuality to exist in the world. So, what is actually the underlying energy that we're speaking about? So he brings an interesting midrash at the very beginning of the Parshat. The first in Midrash Rabbah. So the first midrash starts with a pasuk. The pasuk says, the pasuk in Yeshayahu, "B'za'akecha yatzilucha kibutzacha." When you cry out, the thing that's going to save you is kibutzacha. That you're gathering, you're closing in, you're gathering in. Okay, so he says that this gathering in, this is always a reference to Shmirat HaBrit. Okay, now why is that? So in Sefer Mishlei, so we know that the very end of Sefer Mishlei is something that we say every Friday night, that Eshet Chayil, right? So the first thing it says that about Eshet Chayil is Eshet Chayil miyimtza v'rachak mipnei mircha, that who can find an Eshet Chayil that she's her value is greater than pearls. Batach ba'lev bala. The very first compliment that we have about the Eshet Chayil is Batach ba'lev bala, that her husband can trust her. Okay? Loyalty is the very first quality of an Eshet Chayil. Now, in the entire Sefer Mishlei, so it always compares the Eshet Chayil to the opposite of the Eshet Chayil, and that is the Isha Zayna. Okay, the opposite of the Eshet Chayil, the opposite of the loyal wife, is the Isha Zayna. So, what does it mean, liznot? Liznot literally means to sway away. It means to go off. So it's being very clear that the difference between a person who is okay with their sexuality is a person that's focused, that's going somewhere direct, and the opposite of that is a person who's just very scattered, okay, who's going everywhere. Okay, that part of promiscuousness is that I'm all over the place. Okay, that's why there's an interesting thing that in the Arba Minim on Sukkot, so each of the Arba Minim represents a different part of our psyche, of our body, and our spiritual growth. So it says the etrog represents the heart, and it says the hatasim represents the eyes, and the arivot represents the lips, and the lulav represents the shedra. Means that it's the spine of a person. Okay, so the thing about the spine, it says in Chazal that this is a reference to Yesod. Okay, and so that's why it says Tzaddik katamar yifrach. Tzaddik katamar yifrach. It's a pasuk in Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbos. We say it in Kabbalah Shabbos. Tzaddik katamar yifrach ke'oz bavani nizka. So a tzaddik is going to sprout, is going to flourish like a palm tree. Okay, like the lulav. Okay, so now what's the one thing you have to when you're shopping for Arba Minim? So when you're looking for an etrog, what do you have to look for? It's clean, okay? That it's pure, okay? Because when your heart, the most important thing for your heart has to be pure, without blemishes, okay? But the thing about Yesod, the thing about the shidra, about the spine of a person, so it needs to be closed. The thing that we're looking for, the thing that when we're checking a lulav, the thing that we're checking is that the middle, it needs to be together, okay? As opposed to if it's separate. So what is the defining factor of a person who's okay with his sexuality? That am I focused or am I scattered? Okay, am I an Eshet Chayil, that I'm focused, that I'm going in my direction, I'm pointing, right? If you like the difference, like if everything is together, so then I'm pointing somewhere, I'm going somewhere. If everything is separated, so then I'm all over the place. I'm going where I'm like a what's it called? Not a flamingo, the thing that goes what?
Peacock.
A peacock. Yeah, I'm going everywhere. Right? So what's the thing? So this, why is Yesod about being focused, and why is the opposite of Yesod is to be a zona, a person who's like swaying everywhere. So now the basic thing when it comes to how we view our sexuality. So the question is like, what place does my sexuality have in my life? Okay, so now there's a very basic, somewhat Kabbalistic idea that looks at that. There's a discussion about sex in general. That is it a holy thing or is it an unholy thing? That the Rambam famously says that why is Hebrew called the holy language? Why is it called Lashon HaKodesh? So he says because it doesn't have a word for physical intimacy. We say Vayeshev, they slept, they lied together. That's like there's not a word for it. So the Ramban disagrees vehemently. He claims that there is a Hebrew word for it, and it's not accurate. And more importantly, he argues that how dare you say that it's holy to not talk about, to not have a word for that? It's a very holy thing. Okay? So how does he know that it's a very holy thing? Because perhaps the greatest human accomplishment, perhaps the greatest thing that a human being can do in the world is to bring life into the world. So how could it be that the most amazing thing that a human being could do is brought about by something impure? Right? So the energy of sexuality is by definition something very holy, because human beings do their greatest thing, their greatest accomplishment of bringing life into the world through it. So that proves logically that it's something holy, that it's something amazing. So the question is that how do I make this proper? How do I make it in the right place? And what's the right place for it in the way I live my life, and what's the wrong place for it in the way that I'm going to live my life? So if I focus my sexual energy on bringing life into the world, that's amazing. And when I don't, so then it actually ruins my life. Okay? What do I mean that it ruins my life? So this is on many levels. We'll start with Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman was talking about that people that have an affair. Okay? He said for a fertile shah of anah, for a quarter of an hour of physical pleasure, a person is willing to sacrifice the ganze Eilam Haza and the ganze Eilam Haba, all of his this world, all of his next world, for just a quarter of an hour. Okay? So meaning that a person that sometimes thinks very, very nearsightedness, and I'm just in the mood for something right now, and I don't think about, but maybe I'm going to get caught. I'm for sure going to get caught. It's going to be the end of my life. And you don't think about is this really what I want? I really, but what about my family? And like you completely ruined your life. You completely ruined your life in every aspect. From the perhaps you ruined your career. You ruined your family life. Nobody's going to look at you the same way. The most stupidest thing you could possibly do with your life, and you just do it for just for a quarter of an hour of physical pleasure. It's actually the most the stupidest thing the person can do. So that's on a simple level. Number two. So people who are sex addicts or porn addicts. Okay, it's something that ruins your life. It takes away your life. It literally takes away your life, and the stimulation of it's a horrible. It's first of all, it's an addiction like every other addiction, and like a person who's just like a person who's a drug addict. So they aren't able to enjoy life. They aren't able to have the true enjoyment of relationships. They aren't able to have the true enjoyment, the satisfaction of accomplishment. They aren't able to get somewhere in their careers. They aren't able to get to a state that people admire them. They're missing out on all of the amazing experiences of life. Why? Because they're just stuck on this little pleasure of this whatever it is that they're taking. So it's the exact same thing when people get addicted to sex or porn. That they're sacrificing all of the pleasures of life, all of the true pleasures of life, all of the amazing things of the human experience. So they lost it all. They lose it all because they get caught up in this little addiction, and this little desire for physical pleasure. That's on an extreme level. But the truth is that even the people that aren't doing it on an extreme level, so the more that you're into these things, so the more agitated a person gets, the more violent, aggressive they get, the more that they're simply like not able to enjoy life properly, the more that this is on their mind. So this obsession with sexual energy, so it actually ruins a person's life. Meaning that a person has two options. Either I'm going to look at it for what it was meant to be, which is to bring life into the world, and nothing else. I don't mean nothing else, but like, let's say, but just focus on the fact that it was meant as something which brings life into the world. And the alternative is to be something that I see as an end in and of itself. And if I do that, so it consistently ruins our lives. Okay, so it's a very dangerous energy. And this is something that like we know that whenever there's the greatest potential, there's always the greatest danger. Okay, whenever something like the taller they are, or the harder they fall, higher they are, the harder they fall. So that the Chazal say about Klal Yisrael, that when we're at the top, we're at the top of the top. When we're at the bottom, we're at the bottom of the bottom. That there's no in between. That this energy, because of the amazing potential that it has, so it can either do the most amazing thing in the world, it can bring life into the world, or it can take away our lives. It can just mamish ruin our lives. Okay, so now that's number two. Okay, the first thing, the first thing that the misuse of sexuality ruins a person's life is, like, if a person's having an affair, that Rabbi Nachman said is the stupidest thing in the world, completely ruins his life. And addictions, being addicted to these things, it completely takes away a person from the ability to enjoy life in a real way. And also on the girl side, so when we're talking about, we spoke about this on the Sunday class a little bit, that the question is that it's not for girls as opposed to boys. It's all there's a question for Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, that Hashem wants the Jewish people to have a certain bar of the way society runs, the way that people relate to each other. Okay, and if a person that, as long as the world, as long as society is built around sexuality, like we said on Sunday, that as long as sexuality is something which is in the public domain, which is something which is like, that is how I express myself, how I represent myself, and how people relate to me, so then there's going to be a very horrible thing, and that is that there's going to be a hierarchy. That is that the men are the hunters and the women are the prey. Okay, and so we're going to talk about this more on Tuesday, or maybe next week, because this really has to do with what changed as a result of the sin of the tree of knowledge, is that part of the whole concept of clothing was actually connected to the fact that that the men were said to rule over the women, so that it all works together. That in the world of sexuality, so the man is the hunter and the woman is the prey. Okay, so the woman, so she wants this sexual attention, and because she wants the sexual attention, so she dresses in a certain way that's going to get her the sexual attention, and so then what happens then? So then she gets it, and she gets the attention which is not really what she wanted. It doesn't really satisfy her, and she attracts the wrong guys, the guys that are the hunters, the guys that aren't going to respect her, the guys that aren't going to see her for a personality, for a neshama, for a human being, and she's going to be depressed. She's going to realize that this is not what I wanted, and there's a crazy amount of suicide within, like, in the porn industry. Like, people that they realize that, like, I turned myself into a piece of garbage. I turned myself into a subhuman. I turned into myself that I'm just I don't have rights. I'm being consumed. Like, and it's the worst state of mind to be in. It's the opposite of what Hashem meant for a human being, to feel dignity, to feel empowered, to feel that It's a crazy, crazy reality. So the question is that how are we going to look at society? And that's why we started by saying that why is that the kedusha, why is it that sexual morality is something that is defining? Why we say that we say brit, that this is a covenant with Hashem, this is what a tzaddik katamar yifrach, this is how Yosef is given his title of tzaddik because of this. It's because it's a very essential, it's a very fundamental question. How do I look at myself? How do I present myself to the world? That is this what's on my mind? Is this how I come into the world? I come into the street and I'm a hunter, or I want to be a prey because I'm looking for people to hunt me, and it's because it's really two sides of the same coin. Or am I living life with higher values? With maybe I want to get somewhere from my life. Maybe I have a list of virtues. Maybe I actually have values, that I have things, the bucket list of things I would like to do with my life. I have accomplishments that I would like to achieve, and I would like to get somewhere. I would like to become something. I would like to change the world or change my person. It's two opposites. I'm making it sound very black and white, but the truth is that there's a million different levels, and that the more that I'm into my values, the more that I'm into my priorities in life, so by nature I'm going to be less into the other things. Okay, so this is why that the Torah looks at the inappropriate way of expressing sexuality, both for guys and girls, as znut, which means being swayed, okay, as opposed to the opposite, which is being loyal. What am I being loyal to? I'm being loyal to my life. I'm being loyal to my sense of that I'm a human, that I'm a Jew, that I have a mission, and I'm just being focused. And that's why it's all about being gathered, about being focused. Okay? So now the question is. So now the question is that what's the best way? What's the best way to succeed? What's the best way to help stay focused? So now at the beginning of this Parshat, and I want to start by saying that there's a question in the Midrash. The Midrash says that Bikesh Yaakov Leishav B'Shalva, that Yaakov wanted to just sit in peace, and Tzadok says that means that he thought that he had plateaued, and Kafat Al Rog Shel Yosef
thought they had what?
He had plateaued in life, that he had reached what he needed to reach in life. He reached he had accomplished what he needed to accomplish. And then, so what's the Torah say? That no, you still have another level to achieve, and that is everything in Parshat Vayeshev, everything that has to do with sexual morality. But the thing is that most of it doesn't have to do with Yaakov. Most of it is things which are happening to him. Okay? So how is Yaakov actually growing through what's happening through Yosef? So Rashi answers this question, and Rashi says that how was it that Yosef was able to succeed, not to succumb to this test that Eshes Potiphar was trying to seduce him? So it says that Ra'ad the most yukno shel aviv, that he had an image of his father in his head, and that is what gave him strength. Okay, so now what does that mean? So I once heard 2 years ago, so Rabbi Ywa Jacobson came to Shalayim. I think he's here this year as well as B'ezrat Hashem, and so it was Parshas Vayeshev, and he said that this is his favorite word in the entire Chumash. Okay, and you'll see why it's his favorite word. That when it says that Yaakov was strong, when Yosef was strong, when it says that Yosef did not succumb to this temptation, so it says Vayama'en, and he refused. So it's not a common word, Vayama'en. Okay, it's a very it's something that, in fact, I have this WhatsApp group it's all about chizuk in these areas of Shmir Sinai, and the name of the WhatsApp group is Vayama'en. After this week's parsha, it's all about being strong, nothing's gonna get me away, and distracted, and it's Vayama'en. But it's an uncommon word, right? But the truth is that in this week's parsha, there's another place that says Vayama'en, and that is at the beginning of the parsha. That after the brothers sold Yosef, so what they do? They didn't tell their father that they sold him. They told him that they told his striped clothing, and they took a goat and they killed the goat and they dipped the cloak into the blood and they brought it to Yaakov. And he said, Taraf Yosef, that Yosef got eaten by an animal, and that we see that he was this is his blood, and so it says V'yakumu kol banav v'chol b'neisav linachem, that everybody came to comfort him. Okay, they were making a mak shiva. V'yimaen linachem, that he refused to be comforted. So what was going on over there? That everybody was coming. They were trying to comfort him. So why were they comforting him? They were sitting around the table and they're saying, Yaakov Avinu, look, you have a Baruch Hashem, you have such a beautiful family. You have 11 kids. 11 kids is also 11 boys. It's also good, that you have just okay, one less. Okay, you'll deal with it. And Vayemayin le'isnachem, as Yaakov Avinu says, I refuse to forget about him. That every single child of mine is priceless. I refuse to ever give up. I refuse to ever let go. And there is nothing that will ever take his place. And this is the two times that it says Vayema'en in the Torah, in this week's Parshat. So Rabbi Jacobson said that where did Yosef get the strength for Vayema'en? From Yaakov's Vayema'en. That he could have felt he was alone all by himself. He'd been chased out, and he didn't have his father, didn't have his mother, he didn't have his siblings. He was in a foreign land. He barely spoke the language, and it's a whole there's no Jewish culture. Everything is pagan. It's everything is telling him that just move on. Just move on. What gave him the strength not to move on, to stay with his old ways, to stay with his old values? There's only one thing that gave him the strength to stay with his old values. That is, he knew that my father would never forget about me. My father is still thinking about me. He is not giving up on me. So as long as he's not giving up on me, I'm not going to disappoint him. And this is really the how Yaakov was succeeding in these trials of Shmiras HaBris. So Yaakov was doing it through Yosef because he was being that support system. He was being the one that he could depend on, that because I'm not forgetting about you, so that's what gives him the strength to be strong and not to let go. I heard this recently, but it's an old story that there was a tzaddik about a couple of hundred years ago, that his name was Rav Shimon Miskarnovitz. So there was a couple that came to Rav Shimon, and they told him that a horrible thing happened, that the daughter apparently had developed this relationship without anybody knowing, and she fell in love with some Christian boy, and she had run away, and she was going to marry him, and they insisted that the boy insisted that she go to a convent to learn about Christianity, and she's scheduled to be baptized in order to marry this non-Jew, and the parents just she left them a note and she ran away, and they didn't know what to do. They're crying to Shimon, what, you need to help us. What can we do? So he says, I'm going to take care of this. And he takes his shamash, takes his sidekick, and they asked him, where is this convent? And he finds out where the convent is, and he sits and there's a bench outside the convent, and he sits there, and he doesn't know what to do exactly, but he's waiting there. He's waiting there, and waiting for somebody to come out of the convent. And when somebody comes out, so he gives him some money, and he writes a note, and he writes, my name is Rav Shimon from Skarnovitz, the son of Rav Mendel of Varka, the grandson of Rav Yitzchak of Varka. I'm waiting for you. and he gave it to this worker, and he bribes him, and he tells him to give it to the Jewish girl, and he does. And then he has nothing to do. That he did what he could do, and he's waiting. And the story goes that he was waiting for 3 days and 3 nights. He was just waiting, and she's not going out. And then after 3 days and 3 nights, so he sees the gate opens, and she's running out, and like she runs to him, and she keeps on running, and he runs after her, and when they finally get to a quiet place that they can, like, to like a secret place that they won't get caught, so like they catch her breath, and she's crying, and he asks her, like, how'd you do it? How do you find the strength to run away? And so she said, I wasn't going to run away. And when I first got your letter, so I was so annoyed at you. Like I'm an adult. Like I can make my own decisions. Like, how dare you get involved with my decisions? And then I saw that you wrote, I'm waiting for you. And I kept on looking out the window, and you were always there. And like 1 day passed, and 2 days passed, 3 days passed. And I said, well, this guy means business. He's really, really waiting for me. And when I realized that you're actually waiting for me, when I realized that there's somebody that cares for me, somebody that cares this much, that they will never give up on me. So how can I fight against that? How can I fight against this fact that somebody is never going to forget about me? That's exactly what Yosef was saying. That my father will never forget about me. I can't. What I wanted to cut myself off. I can't cut myself off because they're never going to forget about me. I'm stuck in this. There's a famous thing that on this word, when it says that Yosef was strong and he refused. So the word is v'yamayin, but there's a very special melody that we say that on this word, that in like the tamim, the trap. So it's a very, very unique trap, and it's called a shalshelis. Right, and it's a very special trap. That shalshelis comes from the word 3. That it's very, very, very long. So everybody's talking about what's the thing with the shalshelis. So some people say that it means like that it wasn't so clear cut, that he almost succumbed to the Yetzer Hara, but like at the last minute he was able to break through. But the Kedushas Levi, so he apparently like vehemently disagreed with this. Yosef was strong. Yosef was the tzaddik. Yosef was not on the edge about this. He was very, very strong.
Isn't there a midrash that says that he was literally like on the verge of it?
That's what he's saying. Like he's like the Kedushas Levi gives 10 alternative explanations of what it means by what's it mean. Why is the shalshelis there? And so the Kedushas Levi says that in these 10 things that it was the opposite. That nothing can move me. Nothing will make me budge. That I'm going once, twice, 3 times. That every time that I am steadfast and I will never succumb. And so one of his commentaries is that the word shalshelis comes from the word it's similar to a chain. Shalshelis is like things were chained together. That he felt his chain to the people before him. He felt his chain to that there's his father and his grandfather and the generations before that, and because he understood that I am a part in this chain, I am a link in this chain. So like I'm going to be the loser. That because of me, everything goes to the toilet. So that he felt this shalshelis, and he felt Yaakov's embrace. He felt that he's part of this story. And it says Elo tells Yaakov Yosef, like at the beginning of the Parshat, we say that Yosef is really the expression of Yaakov. Yosef is Yosef was the greater expression of what Yaakov represented. So Yaakov was living through Yosef, through these nisyanos, through these tests. So,
Does that mean he knew he was still alive?
of course, he was. It says when it says Vayemen Lahisnachem, and it says that he refused to be comforted. So that's because he knew that deep down he was still alive. He didn't know the details. He didn't know that he was in Egypt. Okay, but there was something inside of him that refused to let go, refused to accept that he was dead. Okay, so Rashi says that there's a gezerah al hamet sheyishtakach min halev, ve'en gezerah al hachai sheyishtakach min halev.
Exactly, that's what I'm thinking.
That only on a dead person, a person is able to move on. On a live person, so it's impossible to move on. It's very relevant for the hostages. The most important thing is to still it needs to be in our awareness. As much as if we would move on, so then they're gone. Like the more that they're on our minds, so then the more chances are that we're going to get them back. So now the greatest thing that gives us strength to, right, when I'm asking myself that how am I going to look at my life? That I have two options here. That I can live a life of values. I can live a life of being straight, of being focused on what I want to do with my life, or I can be scatterbrained. And scatterbrained means that when on the side of like Shmir Sinayim, it's I don't know which is like I know the boys' side better than the girls' side, but we know that it's the most scatterbrainy thing that can possibly. I have a student that he had a bad motorcycle accident, and he told me that the truth is I deserved it, because the reason what happened is that there was some not so modest girl that was on the sidewalk, and I was staring at her, and I went into a telephone pole, and and so it's crazy how it distracts you. A person could be in a situation that it's the stupidest thing in the world for him to be staring at this immodest girl, and he just doesn't control himself. And it's come on, have you just have some dignity, just have some worth. Aren't you? If people would realize how bad they look when they're it's the most it's the most ridiculous thing. So it's in terms of pizur, in terms of being focused versus being scatterbrained. So on the boys' side, it's certainly very obvious that this is something that's just messes with them. And on the girls' side, it's the same thing, because they're looking for this scattered brainness. They're looking for this attention in the things that they know deep down is not the attention that they want. So it gets them they're knowingly ruining their lives. They're knowingly putting themselves into the situations that they don't want to be in, and it's for this instant gratification, for this attention, for this they feel good for a very small amount of time, and it instantly backfires and makes them into a place that they were much worse than if they wouldn't have had. So this is the difference between going somewhere and going nowhere. This is the difference between being focused, having straight, being a lulav that has a point, that has a direction, or just going in circles and going nowhere. And that's why it's a very defining thing. That's why it's a bris. A covenant is that I'm on my path. I know what I want with my life. I know where I want to go, and I'm loyal to my mission. I'm loyal to my essence. And the opposite is essence, mission, Jewish. Come on, let's just have fun. Let's just instant gratification. Let's just get a little bit of attention here and there, and it's just it's something that just like we said, that this is something that has the potential to bring life into the world, has the potential to destroy our lives. So this is Tikkun HaKlali. This is the Taiva HaKlali, the Tikkun HaKlali, and so Yosef is reminding us what it means to be a Jew. Yosef is reminding us to be very strong, to be very focused, not let anything stray from where we want to get. And so bless us all that we should be as focused as we can, and to appreciate the fact that the more that we're focused on our goals in life, so then the less we need this, like these just small instant gratifications, and the distractions. Really, it's mamish distractions, and it's even in terms of like a person wants to say, like, person is like, I'm gonna down, like it's, if when you're excited about life, so this is really not on your mind, and it's not, there's, I think this is a new approach to this whole this whole part of life, this whole nisayon. Like I think I know in a lot of places they ask you, like, how do I be strong? How do I? And so they'll tell boys, just tell yourself, don't look. If you look, you're gonna go to hell. And like, I think that's so missing the point. That the point is to, like, the point is that to be focused on the true value of life, the true mission, the true, like, what we are able to accomplish with connections, with friendships, with, like, if everything, we spoke about this a little bit, that the wrong approach to Shmiras Einayim is actually very objectifying to women. That if we teach boys that women are sex objects and therefore they're evil and therefore you should never talk to them and therefore you should, woman equals sin. So like that's so taking away from, like, what relationships are supposed to be, what the world is supposed to be, what society is supposed to be, and that's mamish, like, living in the dumps, living in the sewer, and like the real way to have tikkun, the real way of rectification, the tikkun haklali, is that the person should be connected to the focus in life. The person should realize that, like, this is not what I want. I don't want this instant gratification. I want something more. I want real relationships. I want something that's going to bring life into the world, and that's truly what's going to give me happiness. That's truly what's going to be, and anything else is actually going to give me depression. It's actually going to bring me to the dumps. So it's really a question of who am I? It's a question of identity and being loyal to my goals. So, B'ezrat Hashem, we should really be able to remember this. We should be able to really identify as people with values, people with goals, and to not forget, to not slip, and to know that if we slip, so then it's okay. You can always come back, and to really be focused on our mission in life and our relationship with Hashem. B'ezrat Hashem. L'chaim.